Hey my friends, it's really good to see you again. So I came back down to the south, Insurgentes Sur and Del Carmen. Right here we're looking at Insurgentes. When I first moved to Mexico, one thing that helped me understand the city a lot better was that I would connect different walks one to the other. And so I thought maybe we would do that with our walks. So our last walk was right there at the park, La Bombilla. And now we're going to walk into the neighborhoods behind it. And our connection is to Insurgentes. This is right next to La Bombilla metro station for the Metrobus, the Metro bus. You can see the neighborhood is obviously really beautiful. It has about 12 historical monuments. I don't know where any of them are. So our adventure today is just to walk into the neighborhood and to try to see a couple and get a feeling for the neighborhood, and hopefully for people to see another side of Mexico City. Chimalistac is a neighborhood that has been around in one way or the other since probably about the 1550s, 1570s. It has about 12 monuments in the neighborhood. My main goal is I'd like to see there's some ancient bridges in this area, and there's some fountains. And if I can see those, I'll be pretty happy with today. I'm not really sure which way I want to go here. If La Bombilla Park is to the left, and to the right is towards Unam. Let's see. I think we're going to just keep going straight. The decision's made. To the left, that pretty old, beautiful building is the neighborhood hospital. Mexico has hospitals around the city. They have a form and a balance between socialized and capitalist medicine. I think that would be part of the the socialist version, IMSS, where people pay like an insurance, and then you get assigned to a hospital. I'd be surprised if almost anyone from outside this neighborhood goes to that hospital, but I don't know. Hola, amigo. In the neighborhood, there's little plaques about the history. So from here, it's where Fresno and Pimentel met, I guess the cross streets. Back in the 1800s, there was this enormous tree. The friar wrote about it, that it was about 19 meters and the largest in Mexico. I couldn't find any photos of it. But it may be there where that fountain is, or maybe where I'm standing. I'm actually not sure if I was on Pimentel and Fresno. A couple of these fountains are really famous. And we'll go back for another walk where I go that direction. That's kind of the fun of going for these walks is, one day you go left and the next day you go right. So after Cortes arrived, this whole area was really a field that belonged to a parish. They gave the land in, I think, around the 1600s to the parish, and it became one of the more famous parishes. This is one of the more famous structures. It was originally built by one of the friars or priests, and the meditation was to meditate on God while you built something, to work while you prayed. So if you want to look up the history, you'd look up, Cámara or Ermita del Secreto. It actually has different names and no one's ever fully decided. But I think in some ways that's because it's a structure built by a monk in the middle of a tree field, and it meant something to him. And although I think that it's fair to bring up the contradictions between what we would consider Christ or what we would consider a beautiful relationship with God and the abuses that happened with the Mexica and the Aztecs, I think sometimes we have to pull away from always being critical and see that a man saw that the mission of this building was to meditate on the sorrows of life, to try to become closer to God through building something, to stay focused on His Lord while at the same time working. And we see contradictions in the faith, but we also see motivations to become better people. the neighborhood has essentially been built around the field that was once the meditation area, the prayer area, the preaching area of this hermitage. And so everything's built around these beautiful historic monuments. And from what I understand, it wasn't that long ago that people still met at this little building to hear the preaching of the priests. Let me start this here. I read somewhere that when you're sitting inside of that temple, that building, that it's built in a way where some of the friars found a loophole in their vow of silence and would hold whispered conversations because the echo in that little building was able to carry the sound of a whisper to the other side of the room, but not have it be heard outside. It's truly amazing to be walking around a building and to be in a neighborhood where that building, built in, I think, 1620, is older than all the trees and everything around it. The Reformation, I think it's called the Reformation or the Reform Laws, there was a time where Mexico tried to pull away from being so religious, and they actually took the land from the church, and that's why this neighborhood is here. But for some reason they didn't touch that building. And so today we're able to appreciate the spirit of those monks by being able to walk through this neighborhood. before the Spanish came and conquered the Aztec Empire, this was part of a kingdom which I believe was ran by a king named Coyoacán, which today has been changed to Coyoacán. The leader of this tribe or nation converted to Catholicism and became a great friend or servant or fellow to Cortes. And that's why this land actually became part of the monks' property, because it was donated to them by the son of the king that became friends with Cortes. Hola, amigos. The beauty of the quinceañera, of a young woman finally accepting her beauty and having the family get together for those beautiful photographs. It's actually a little humbling to see. Quinceañeras have really died off in Mexico City to a certain point because of the pandemic, but I was a little embarrassed to walk by, and also I saw the kind of the beauty of the art. May her life be blessed. you can see how close we are to the busy city, to Insurgentes still, and it feels like we're in another world. A lot of people who write about this neighborhood say it's a place where you can get away from the city. It's maybe the only place, and you can have a conversation with yourself. I personally can have a conversation with myself anywhere, but I get what they're saying. If you'll notice, a lot of the old walls that you see, some of them are actually made out of the volcanic rock that was left behind after a major explosion from one of the volcanoes near Mexico City. This area was connected to the United States' invasion of the United States. They had occupied the area where the monks would live, and this set off the beginning of the selling of the properties during the reform laws. So after the Americans occupied the convent for many months, it began to be sold off, and around 1897, you really see the building of this neighborhood begin as it is now, I believe. Then during the Revolution, in sometime between 1910 and 1921, the Zapatistas take over, which are then replaced and taken out through battling with the Cortes. The homes in this area, I believe the cheapest might be 19 million pesos. I saw many for 29 million pesos. It's one thing that's interesting is you get these very expensive houses, but you also get these incredibly high walls, and that's fine. But sometimes it does speak to the fear that somebody with a lot of money has. The separation. It's not all their fault. It's probably our fault. But I found it interesting that in every neighborhood where I find these big walls and expensive houses, that's where the dogs really start barking at you. It's like they're part of the fear. They're part of that fear that's inside their owners. señor? El río es derecho? Río y la viejo puente. ¿Un más? No, solamente por caminar, mi amigo. Es por turistas. Perdóname, ¿es esto derecho para sí? Es la vieja historia donde la puente es y muy viejo. No sé. It's okay, mi amigo. Y gracias por poco inglés también. Mi español es malo, pero muchísimas gracias. Espectacular, gracias. Just showing off my Spanish there. I believe I'm at the phase where I make up words that don't exist, but they sound Spanish. I'm trying my best to learn, but like anyone who's learning a second language, you have to be patient with yourself, and you have to even appreciate and laugh about your mistakes. This area, the name Chimalistac, comes from the Nahuatl language, the indigenous language before the Spanish arrived. It's believed that the name itself is something like Chamai, which means white shield. And some people have speculated that it was in this area that the Aztec, the famous Aztec sundial, was built. That the rocks here are similar, and that the name of the white shield, or where the white shield was built, would actually point to this being the area where they built the sundial. It's really not accurate, though, to call it a sundial, right? The Aztec calendar. Recent evidence for hundreds of years, it was believed that this was the Aztec calendar. But some evidence has shown recently that it was actually where two men would fight to the death, and I think the winner would be, I don't know if it's connected to the human sacrifices, but it was where men would fight to the death, either for the honor or to not be sacrificed. I think, strangely enough, it's actually for the honor to be sacrificed. To us today, that sounds awful. But to the Mexica, the Aztecs, the honor of giving your blood to the sun, in which this would save everybody else, because it was believed that the sun had to get blood to keep going around the earth. It sounds simplistic to us, but before we're too judgmental, remember, we believe that, Jesus died on a cross, and his blood saved all of us. So I found the bridge. For me, this is one of the great moments to be able to go back in history to the mid-1600s and be able to walk under and then walk over a bridge built that old. Now, it may seem funny to us, but that bridge used to take you over a river. In fact, recently this whole area was green. Spectacular. spectacular. This school has a painting of the Wizard of Oz outside. It's amazing how a good story can cross over any culture and any language. Copil was the son of Madgalena. She was a beautiful woman. She was ambitious, but she caused her son to have a fight or to confront Huitzilopochtli. Copil lost his heart or was torn out in the battle, and his body was thrown into the lake of Texcoco. From there, he was born as the cactus that the eagle would land on. The Mexica would know that they found Tenochtitlan. His body was laying in this area of Coyoacan on the shores. And the significance of this place is and this area is the area of Copil and his crowns, his royalty. I hope I translated that okay. I do better with my reading than my speaking. So here we're Chimalistac and Coyoacan and San Angel are three areas that overlap. And so now I think we're in Coyoacan. More of a working class neighborhood, still very beautiful area. One thing I think about is that to us Mexico City is so simple, but if you know the history, all of a sudden we're in the place of Copil's crown, where his body laid after giving the gift of being the cactus that the Mexica found, where the eagle and the prophecy was fulfilled. You can take real pride in your country when you know that the history is more than colonization, and it's more than being defeated. In fact, it's royalty. It's prophecy, it's divine. Hiya! Ha! Benito Diaz, señores. It's random stuff like that that makes Mexico even more beautiful. I feel that I'm going to go back to where the bridge was. I think that's where the more historical and beautiful walk is. And I think I'll come back to this area for maybe the next walk or a walk in the near future. If I'm not mistaken, that's where the pulpit is, where people would practice their preaching while they were in the convent or the order of monks. There would be a Strawn River that I think still technically exists, but it's underground. The Spanish spent a lot of time filling the rivers and building streets over them. It could be because of the dryness of the season. For some context, let's remember that this bridge was built about 125 years, 140 years before the Constitution of the United States was written. The river that flowed through here, I believe, was the Rio Madgalena. It was a beautiful river that continues through down to Xochimilco, through Coyoacán, and in some places in modern-day Mexico, it pops back up to the surface. I believe it definitely used to be where we're walking was the river. And it was through the changing of the city itself, replacing the rivers with cement, that we lost that river. From what I understand, there's a third bridge, which is bigger, and that might actually be the pulpit bridge, the one where the monks would actually practice their sermons. So we're going to walk up towards there and see if I can find it. They've built these great apartment complex here. I'm not sure if it was ever a fort before that, but it looks like it. For a lot of people, they don't realize that Mexico City was a city of rivers. Almost exactly like the city of Venice. Here we see one of the old crosses that are carved into many areas in this area by the monks back in the 17 and 16, 1800s. Moments of reflection for those monks, maybe on the sacrifice of Jesus, the humility. I understand the contradictions, but I also understand that a lot of those monks truly believed and were wonderful people, despite what I now see as, at times, a genocide that occurred here in Mexico. It's one of those things when we look back, we have to see the history of all the people involved, including those we know that they were violating other people's rights. There's a legend that says that you can still hear and even see the ghosts of the monks that would spend their hours of contemplation and preaching on this bridge. Here's a pretty famous photo of the Rio Madgalena in Chimalistac. Can't believe that's where we are. This painting is from 1880 of Chimalistac. Hermano, gracias por música. Bonito día. Gracias. This is one of the most, maybe you won't understand it, but pleasant parts of Mexico. You can be in an area of 29 million peso homes, and then there's someone who either has stayed, refused to move, and it's not the nicest house, but it's part of the neighborhood, and it's going to be part of the neighborhood. I think it's one of the more beautiful parts of Mexico. That kind of like flexibility. This is an interesting story. I couldn't translate it all, but there's a story of an indigenous person who got swept up by the currents of the river, and they end up dragging him out of the river, and he says, you don't have to bury me or hang me by my feet. And it started to become a legend that this indigenous person had been raised from the dead. And in a lot of ways, we can see parallels to the story of Jesus, and maybe how these stories started to, and there's always stories of people being raised from the dead, but if it happened after the Spanish, a connection that we also can be raised from the dead. And that although the currents of life and of the invasion of the Spanish, you can start seeing the connection of we too are part of being raised from the dead. And I thought it was really interesting, but I didn't translate it correctly. The sign was a little messed up. One of the unique personality traits and charms of Mexico is that man who was carrying that cart, and he yells out, he's not angry, he's picking up older utensils or things that you don't want anymore. And this is one of the beauties of Mexico, is that there's a system of making things work that other people don't want. So somebody will go around and they'll pick up your magazines and they'll sell it or sell for the paper. And then there's people around the city like that guy who carry this big wheelbarrow, and they'll pick up your old chairs, your microwaves, and then they'll try to fix it and then sell it somewhere for themselves. Hola, amigo. No sé, perdóname. So as we wind down the walk through Chimalistac, we find this wall that goes over the entire history of Chimalistac. It talks about how the volcanoes creating everything that we see, and then the struggles between Huitzilopochtli and Copel, and how the shield falls and everything that became Mexico was from this battle, that this is the foundation. From this area, there was the beginning of everything that we know now. And then after the conquest of Tenochtitlan, when it became Mexico City, the Lord of Coyoacan offered this area to Cortes. It talks about kind of, I think, the construction of the modern day Mexica, the Mexican, and how they came together as a culture. And then here we have the invasion or the intervention of the Anglo-Americana, the United States, and how the Irish battalion of San Patricio, St. Patrick, who had switched over to the Mexican side, fought bravely for our country. And it's actually in this area, in one of the churches, that the remains are buried. And then I believe the Zapatistas find mummies in the convent of Del Carmen, the assassination in one Bombilla restaurant. It's an interesting ending to that wall. So my friends, as we walk out of Chimalistac, I hope you enjoyed the walk. It's a long one, but a beautiful one. We're gonna come out here and there's this busy street, and it's like you exit one realm of reality back into the reality of Mexico City. Disculpe, señor. I really enjoyed our time walking together. I hope that whatever else your day holds for you, that it's blessed and that you're happy and that you have joy in your life. Well, we'll look at these books and see if there's anything good, and you make sure to take care of yourself. Thanks for your time.